guys? The Bench Buddies are back, and I'm doing my preseason top 25 for college football here. Ty will be asking me a few questions this time around, and we're gonna get right into it here. But before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Get us to 200. We'll be doing that giveaway. But we'll jump in here with the others receiving votes. And as you can see, there's a few teams that are ranked currently on the AP poll that I have here. With BYU, Wisconsin, and Arkansas. Those are the three teams that are ranked. And then Iowa and Mississippi State are just missing out on the cut. But I think the team that is getting slept on, you talked about it a little more in yours, was Mississippi State. I think this team, we saw last year, they competed in almost every game. And yes, it may not have been, the best season that they could ask for. But under Mike Leach, I think it's a pretty good first year at Mississippi State. And I really think the sky is, it can only get better from here, I feel like, for this team. After he's really shown that he can compete in the SEC his first year. I mean, look at Jimbo. How did he do his first year? Not the best. He obviously has the #1 recruiting class and everything at Texas A&M. And I think Mike Leach could reach, a status, maybe not that high, but something like that. But let's talk about those Big Ten teams as well. You have Iowa Hawkeyes winning the Big Ten last year, and then obviously losing to Michigan in the championship game. And then you have Wisconsin, a kind of a disappointment of a season for them, I think you could say. And I think they're looking for some big bounce back years. Possibly it could happen, but Iowa, I'm just not sold on Iowa, kind of like you aren't as well. And it will be tough though for Iowa to get going, because they do have a decently hard schedule to start. Obviously, they have Iowa State. Was it week 2, I believe? I think it's week 2 or week 3. So that'll be a tough game, but, they've always beaten them however many years in a row. So it feels like it's not that big of a deal. But we're going to move on to BYU and Arkansas here. BYU pretty much is only still relevant because of how good Zach Wilson was for this school. And, they do have a decent squad over there, but it's nothing that you're going to write home and probably be a top 10 team at the end of the year. Arkansas, they're a good SEC team as well. And it seems like every year there's at least one SEC team that breaks out that no one really saw coming. And it really could be that Mississippi State, another Arkansas like they did last year, go 10-2 and really contend. But we're just going to have to see who that team's going to be. But we'll start with my bottom 5 in the top 25. And you can see that only one of these teams is currently ranked in the AP poll, and that is Cincinnati, coming in at 23. So it's a little bit of a difference there, but those teams all were receiving votes and pretty close to getting in the AP poll. 25, we got Texas. Obviously, people are saying that Texas is back, but we're really going to see Saturday against Alabama what this team is going to do. And, it comes down to if they can even contend and make it a 2-score game, I think, then Texas, has something going for them this year. Just because, one, Alabama, we saw last year, absolutely throttle Miami in Miami. And, Miami was ranked 20th, I believe, going into the year. And they absolutely got throttled, and that kind of just derailed their whole season. So I think if Texas can have a decent game, this team, might be back as well. But Cincinnati, got to put them in here just because of after last year's magical run. Auburn, I'm mostly just putting them in because of the interns that worked with me at them. They kind of were on me for not putting Auburn this high. So I feel like I had to put them in there. But, TJ Finley is going to be the starting QB. And that comes to a shock to a lot of people. A lot of people thought Calzada from Texas A&M, the transfer, was going to be the starting quarterback. He does not get it, and it's going to be Finley. So that's going to be an interesting storyline throughout the whole Auburn season. They got 3 guys that really could be starting for him over there. 22, we got Penn State. Just another James Franklin year, I think, of 9-3. Just how they normally do it, maybe with a close upset win against a big school with Michigan State, or Ohio State. One of those teams, I think they're going to play to the wire. And then LSU running it out at 21. Everyone forgets that Brian Kelly is coaching this team. And, if he can do it with Notre Dame, with, the scrutiny of, they should join a conference. Well, now he gets to show that he is a really good coach. And I think it's nothing but success here for LSU. Maybe it's not going to be college football playoff, those expectations, but I think they're looking at 9-3, 10-2, possibly if they get, some right calls and luck goes their way. But everyone is kind of forgetting about this LSU team and how good they can be.
So who do you think would be, I don't know, the least delusional to have college football playoff expectations out of these five teams?
See, if you're going with it, I feel like you have to go with Texas just because you know how everyone is that everyone wants Texas to be back, but it's just the reality is they just aren't. And it's kind of like since Vince Young, what has Texas done really? And you can argue about nothing. I mean, I know they've had some good years in between, but since that moment, I think Texas has, not been the big primetime school. And when they're joining the SEC, it's gonna be a nice little reality check there for them. But I think it's 1A and 1B with LSU as well. If they can, whip off 6, 7 in a row to start the season, I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be riding high on this LSU hype train. And that's just going to be part and thanks to Brian Kelly. So for my next five, we have Kentucky coming in at 20. And I just think this team is going to be that SEC team that is going to be the team that, magical run, because last year they showed flashes of becoming that team. And this year, I believe they're returning 3/4 of their starters and mostly key factors as well. And, when you have your quarterback, running back, wide receivers, your key guys that you need on the team to start, and you have that veteran leadership, I think it's nothing but success there for Kentucky. And that's kind of where I see this team taking off, being that surprise SEC team. And I'm not saying they're, going to win the SEC or anything, but I think they're going to turn some heads here and really get some respect in the SEC. And possibly Ole Miss as well at 19. Obviously, you said it in your video, Matt Corral. How is that situation going to be handled? And that's a tough task to replace because obviously Lane Kiffin last year was like, well, we have Matt Corral, so we're good. We're going to win. But now he doesn't have him, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this Ole Miss team, plays offense. If we're going to be brutally honest, are they going to be a run first team now, or are they just going to keep airing it out no matter who's in the quarterback? 18, we have Oregon. Obviously, we have Mario Cristobal leaving, and that program, who knows what hands it's going to be in. It's the Pac-12. They should be good, obviously. There's not too many good teams in the Pac-12. Obviously, you haven't seen any here yet so far. And to their credit, I think it's going to be a 9-3, 10-2 season. Obviously, you've heard me say that a lot, but it just seems like that. How could they not at least win 9 games if you look at their schedule? A few tough games there, but it's Oregon. It seems like they do it every year, a 9-3, 10-2, maybe make an 11-1 season 2, way back when we were little kids. But, maybe it's time for Oregon to go in a new direction and move up, but we'll have to see. 17th and 16th, I think these two teams are interchangeable. Obviously being Baylor, in the AP poll, they're right at 10, so they're rounding out the top 10. So they have high expectations for them. But the game that you're going to have to look for Baylor is the rematch of Oklahoma State and Baylor. We saw that last year, Big 12 championship game, came up with a huge stop at the 1-yard line. Obviously, Baylor won that game on cloud 9. But how are they going to go into this season, off of that huge success of a season that no one really saw coming? You're going to find out week 2 when they travel to BYU, who is in those other receiving votes. And I think that's going to be a game that's flying way under the radar. It's going to be on at 10:15 at night. So not too many people on the Eastern side are going to watch it. But if you're on for some late football, that'll be a great game. And I think there could be an upset brewing as well. In 16, obviously we have Wake Forest. And you said, Sam Hartman, probably top 5 Heisman candidate coming into the year after his excellent season last year. Obviously he's out. We don't know the exact weeks, days, months, who knows? It could be, the whole year as well. But it's a huge loss there. Hopefully all is good for him.
All right. So who would you say is the biggest ceiling out of those teams? And then who would you say has the best chance to kind of blow up and have, a miserable miserable season?
Um, Best ceiling and worst ceiling, I think, could be that Wake Forest team. Best ceiling is Sam Hartman comes back quicker than everyone expects and just absolutely lights it up. But worst ceiling is he doesn't come back as well, and you're looking at a 4-8, maybe 6-6 team, because the expectations for that Wake Forest team coming into the year were pretty high in the ACC just because it was kind of wide open. After Clemson didn't really have a down year, but not making the playoff is a down year for them nowadays. But if you really want to choose another team, I would probably say Ole Miss will be the disappointment just because of the QB uncertainty. And starting my next 15 through 11, the next 5 teams, we're shaking it up a little bit. We got Houston and Pitt all the way up here. And, these teams have a lot of questions going into this year. Houston, obviously, they had a good run last year, but what can they do this year? Pitt, obviously, they were extremely well last year, too. And Kenny Pickett really put on a show. Obviously, got a first-round pick to the Steelers, so he is literally across the hall from all of his college teammates now. And I think you just got to stop there at Pitt. Could this team be a top 10 team? Absolutely. But could they also be a 5-7 team when it's all said and done and be a huge disappointment? Absolutely. There's just huge question marks around that QB spot and, around almost everything too, because it's kind of one of those seasons. Can you repeat rather than can you sustain it? And essentially for Pittsburgh, ACC is wide open, and I think it's going to be one of those can you repeat it kind of seasons for them. 13th, we have Oklahoma. Obviously, you said it, the departure of their head coach and, quarterback, pretty much the whole team, it feels like, all went to USC with Lincoln Riley. And you bring in, what did you say? What's his name?
Dylan Gabriel.
Gabriel, yeah, brought in Gabriel, and I think he's going to be electric game one. And I would love to see Oklahoma contend early and really play for that, big game that they have in Nebraska. I think that's going to be a game that is going to be underrated for sure in week 3, because last year we saw Nebraska hung with Oklahoma till the last second in Oklahoma. So if they go into Nebraska, I think that's a game circled on Nebraska's calendar, which could be an upset. But they do have to close out with Baylor and then at West Virginia, home versus Oklahoma State, and then at Texas Tech. So it is a tougher 4 games for Oklahoma in the Big 12. If you're looking at here preseason, I think 13 to really 10 is kind of a good range for them. 12, Oklahoma State. And I really want to put this team in the top 10, if I'm going to be brutally honest, because, well, they were an inch, maybe less than that, away from winning the Big 12 and more than likely stealing that 4th spot from Alabama for the college football playoff. And if they did, I think if they win that game, you can't not put a 1-loss team not in the college football playoff that won their championship. Tough luck, Alabama, but, unfortunately they won and whatnot. And so the playoff could have been a whole different story if Oklahoma State wins last year, and a lot of chaos for sure. But obviously it worked out that they didn't get it done. And I think they're having the same expectations coming into this year, still flying under the radar. All the other Big 12 teams are being talked about, and we're going to have to see from there. But 11, we got Michigan State and the Spartans. Can they repeat the success? Absolutely. Mel Tucker has done an excellent job so far turning that program around. What was it, a 2-win season to an 11-win season? I think it was the most in franchise, obviously, well, most in Spartan history, but I'm not sure. It might be the most ever in college football history as well. But just that remarkable turnaround. Really, State had no expectations going in this year. Well, now they have some, and can they live up to it?
Yeah, this is an interesting group here because all 5 of these teams were really good last year, especially 11 through 14, obviously. So who do you think has the best chance to kind of repeat what they did last year and, build off what they have coming back?
Best chance, I would say Michigan State. I know they lost Kenneth Walker, but best chance because, well, they pretty much have their whole team and Jayden Reed's back. And, a running back is much easier to replace than a quarterback or 2-star receivers and stuff like that. Just because I know Kenneth Walker was elusive and all, but running through gaps and juke moves, blocking, all that stuff, it comes with time. And I'm not dissing on Kenneth Walker because he beat us and tore us up, but he's a good back, and I think he's gonna have an excellent year. But this Spartan team has a lot of depth coming back, and that's something for college. That's something that you need. So starting off my top 10, we got NC State at 10, Clemson at 9, Notre Dame at 8, Texas A&M at 7, and Utah at 6. And NC State, obviously, I have them a lot higher than you do. Obviously, you haven't seen USC yet, as Ty was referring in the video, so I have them a lot higher as well too. I have Notre Dame and Clemson lower than you do, but that's a agree to disagree because they're right around the same. Texas A&M, Utah, kind of the same here. Obviously, you can tell that our top 9 are pretty almost all consistent besides one. And I think storylines here, DJ Ugalele for Clemson, can he actually step up and be, number 1 recruit we all thought he was? Last year, he had 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions with over 2,000 yards. And, everyone had he's going to come in, absolutely light it up, probably throw for 30 touchdowns, Heisman candidate. First game of the year, what happened? 10-3, throws a pick 6, they lose. And he just couldn't do anything against Georgia last year. I know they won it all in the huge defense, whatnot, but first game of the year, that's when everyone's most vulnerable. And if you can't even compete first game of the year, then that's kind of how their season went. And I know they had a really good record last year still, but, Clemson, I think their writing's on the wall for them this year. If they kind of have a 8-4 season, they might start to fade and recruits might start looking elsewhere. Number 8, Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman. Obviously, players love this guy. Who are they going to trust? Obviously him. He's going to be the guy. That's the storyline for Notre Dame. Utah, heavy favorites to win the Pac-12 and be a playoff team as well. And I can kind of see that happening too if everything lines up.
Yeah, another interesting 5 teams because I feel like all of these teams could make the playoff or, go 8-4 and have a really disappointing season. So, they all have a chance to make the playoff. So I guess I'll ask who you think has the best chance to perform below expectations out of these 5.
Below, I feel like you just have to go with NC State just because can they repeat? But I feel like I'm going to go out there and say Clemson. I think that the ACC is out there. It's up for the taking. They're not heavy favorites like they were last year. And, you see there's some ACC teams ranked here. There's 4 already. And I think any of those 4 can really come away with it. But we'll start with the top 5 here. Yes, that is correct. You see USC there at 5. Coming into this year, I don't care what everyone's saying. They're hot, too high, too low, doesn't matter. USC bringing in Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, electric. That's just all you need to know there. And they're, going to have a target on their back this year, and especially for years to come, playing in the Big Ten. Obviously, you're going to have to travel all the way, and is it going to be worth it for them? Absolutely, and it's just great competition. 2 other Big Ten teams, you got Michigan, Ohio State. Obviously, enough said there. You know what's happening in Columbus and in Ann Arbor. The 2 quarterback situation. We're going to see how that plays out. 2-1. It just has to play out that way. I can't put Georgia at 1 just because of having the Heisman winner and potential best defensive player of the year in Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. I would say Alabama is definitely quite a bit above everyone else, but I guess if someone's gonna beat them in the national championship, who's it gonna be?
As much as it pains me to say it, it's got to be Ohio State, just because they have C.J. Stroud, Jackson Smith, Najigba, and an electric running back committee that they can just throw in there. But that's going to be it for the video today. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. The Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.